Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're building a 4-color control deck centered around Pyromancer's Goggles, which is a 5-mana legendary artifact. You can tap it for a red, and when that red mana is spent to cast a red instant or sorcery spell, we get to copy it and choose new targets for the copy. So the Goggles is awesome in this deck, as every instant and sorcery is red, so we get to copy them all, and especially our 7-drops are exciting to ramp into with the Goggles and immediately copy, such as the Improvisation Capstone, exiling cards off the top until we exile a total mana value 4 or greater. We get to cast those spells for free, and we get to repeat this process every turn going forward. And then the Jeskai Revelation is also particularly impressive if you get to cast it twice, as we can even bounce multiple lands on the opponent's side back, make 4 Monk tokens if we get to copy it, deal 8 damage, gain 8 life, and draw 4 cards. So that's really the dream that we're trying to accomplish. And then looking at some of our other cards, we're also running the full set of Tablet of Discovery, which has revealed itself to be the superior ramp card in a control shell compared to the Resonating Loot, as it provides immediate value, can often tap it for mana right away, and just in general is great for ramping out all our 7-drops, such as the Capstone and Revelation. And then we also have some sweepers, 2 copies of Pyroclasm as kind of an earlier board wipe, still fine to copy with Goggles later to deal 4 damage total. And then we've got the Ill-Timed Explosion, which can either be a card draw spell in matchups where you don't need the board wipe, but we can also draw with it, discard, and then deal damage equal to the mana value of the discarded card. So it can maybe deal 7 if we end up drawing too many of these expensive cards, or can maybe deal 5 if we draw multiple Goggles, since it is legendary, so we can maybe get rid of the second copy. Although there will be turns where we can maybe play the Goggles and then essentially end up copying 2 spells in 1 turn cycle, so that's still an interaction to keep in mind. And then we're splashing black essentially for Inevitable Defeat as a flexible answer that can exile any non-land permanent, gaining 3 and making the opponent lose 3 in the process. So the eventual goal is to burn the opponent out with cards like Inevitable Defeat, the attacks from the Monk tokens and damage from Revelation, but we also have a Lightning Helix dealing 3 and gaining 3, and Burst Lightning, which can maybe deal 4 damage if we kick it. Another important interaction to keep in mind is that if you control the Goggles, while you don't get to normally copy anything cast off a Capstone, if you do exile a Burst Lightning, you can pay the kicker cost using the Goggles, and then the Burst Lightning will actually get copied, so you maybe end up dealing 8 damage with your Burst Lightning that way, so that can also get the game over with pretty quickly. Then to make sure we have some interaction against graveyard strategies, I am packing 3 copies of Soul Guide Lantern, since we can always just sacrifice it to draw a card in matchups where we don't need it. So this has been my go-to in best of 1 for colors that maybe don't have access to better graveyard hate. And then we also have a few looting effects, like the Pursue the Past, can discard to draw 2 and gain 2 in the process, also has flashback. At 3 mana, there's 1 copy of Seize the Spoils, and then we already mentioned the Ill-Timed Explosion, so more ways to kind of churn through the deck, maybe get rid of extra Goggles or 7-drops that we're not going to cast, so that can also smooth out our draws. And then the mana base also gets to run the new Great Hall, which can turn into a 2/4 creature that also gets pumped whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, so that also gives the deck 1 more win condition. And then the exclusive Nightclub is just good mana fixing in a 4-color deck, but occasionally we'll actually make use of the Mayhem ability, since we have a few ways to discard it, as we mentioned, so then we can play this from the graveyard at the cost of 2 life. And then we've got some more shock lands, couple basics, and then also making full use of the new slow lands that have been reintroduced in Secrets of Strixhaven. So these are also very important, being untapped later in the game without costing us any life, while still fixing our colors very nicely. So yeah, that's pretty much our deck. Let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw with a fine hand, assuming our opponent presents some targets for all this removal. And they will oblige with turn 1 talent. Could still wait, since we picked up Pyroclasm now, play tap Blood Crypt, and maybe get 2 other tokens next turn. If they bounce the talent and replay it, Grain we can also sweep up. So it could be more of a Lessons deck. So then Lantern exiling some Lessons from the graveyard could also matter. And they've got the Monument, great target for Inevitable Defeat if we can cast it here. For now, I think it's going to be a Lantern and play tapped Sacred Foundry, pass a turn. Opponent's got another monument, so can take those out on back-to-back turns. So I'm not in a hurry to sack the Lantern yet. But I do want to take this out before they get to untap and maybe trigger them. Another Gran. Okay, still gonna prioritize inevitable defeat on monuments. Can wait and see if our opponent maybe has a play they want to make here. Then I'll defeat the monument now. Cannot be countered, so don't need to worry about it'll quench ya. Eventually talent leveling up could also be a concern if it gets to level 3. But we've got a lot of time to handle it. And Gran attacks, discarding a removal spell. Actually gets rid of a Wisdom. So they might have a few more of those in hand. Opponent wants to level up the talent to get the Wisdom back. Yeah, let's just pop the Lantern maybe. I lose Lantern, they lose Wisdom. Just use a Burst Lightning here. Or I could ill-timed Explosion. Although I might want to keep that to answer a few other tokens. But also want to make sure I get to my powerful late game. So, yeah, let's Explosion. Find another Lantern. So I can just discard Helix plus Burst Lightning. Although at that point it makes more sense to decline and just cast the Burst Lightning. Opponent's at 12, so yeah, do have to keep that in mind. Maybe animating the Biblioplex and getting a couple attacks in can get them dead. But the main plan is to resolve the capstone. So we can pursue the past. Discarding probably the Helix. It's clunkier than Burst Lightning, and Burst Lightning answers the same cards. Play tapped Nightclub. Could also wait to flash this back to get this in play with Mayhem, but that seems like a bit of a stretch. And then Lantern. Just exile Gran. Could have also held it until they played a lesson. But it might be safer to just have it on the battlefield. Opponent will accumulate Wisdom. So yeah, next turn we can try the Capstone, hoping they don't have a counterspell for it. They may tap out to level up the talent, which would make sense from their perspective. Okay, so the coast is clear. And a Jeskai Revelation is a nice one. Bounce your talents, deal 4 damage. And now Goggles is pretty sweet too. Can maybe copy the Pursue the Past or Burst Lightning. And our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a decent hand. We've got all our colors. Good interaction for aggressive creature decks. Ramp into Revelation and then Graveyard Hate. In case our creature removal doesn't line up. So just wanna hit 1 or 2 more land drops. Opponent black with a second color. Looks like the Dinosaur Reanimator deck, so yeah, the Soul Guide Lantern is exactly what we need here to not die on turn 3. So this is quite a headache for our opponents. Exile your Galta, and now they still need to deal with the Lantern a second time. And they're just gonna make a robot. That's fine. Alright, so go for Tablet here, it seems. Even though I don't get to make use of the milled card, unless it's another Lantern. And I could Pyroclasm already, to be fair. So we're not too far from casting Revelation or Capstone. And our opponent needs to fill their graveyard 2 more times before they can actually get something back. At which point we can also maybe counter their reanimation spell. So now I can actually use Mayhem, thanks to Pursue the Past. So we got some extra value. And pass it back. Definitely not gonna draw with the Lantern in this matchup. Opponent surveils a land into the graveyard. Alright, so did not find a land, but I could play the Goggles, and then next turn we're guaranteed to even copy the Capstone or Revelation, which seems good enough to me. So then the safest play would be to pass a turn, keep up Revelation, as opposed to going for double Capstone, which would be fun too. But yeah, let's just pass. And 4 Monk tokens can get the game over with very quickly. Opponent could discard something to hand size. We even get to maybe bounce a land here. Could also consider bouncing my own stuff, like a tablet or a lantern. But yeah, so we're bouncing the leftmost starting town, now the right one. Deal 4. Opponent's gonna have to discard to hand size quite a bit now. Holding 10 cards. Although they're probably happy to discard some dinosaurs. But yeah, I don't think they're getting another turn here. So how do we want to end things? Probably just copying another Jeskai Revelation. Bouncing 2 more lands. And that'll be game over. Opponent seems to have some spot removal maybe for the Monk. That's fine. Better Triumph, discard a land. So bounce this other swamp, deal 4 more. Well, in 1 turn cycle we bounced 4 lanes. And this will be more than enough. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. This mana base is gonna hurt, and we have 2 7-drops in hand already without any ramp. So a few many strikes against it, I think. This seems more reasonable. I'll keep the Lantern just in case. And then, since we have Ill-Timed Explosion, maybe Helix is less of a priority. Since we'll be able to clean up the board. But of course there are matchups where we might prefer the Helix. So black-white, probably don't need to prioritize the Lantern just yet. Just play tapped Sacred Foundry. Can also play a Lantern the same turn we play Tablet. Make that Mardu. And Authority, so it could also be a more controlling strategy. Okay, so don't have any useless removal spells in my hand. Since this is still a draw 2, this can answer other permanents. So there's nothing I necessarily want to discard with Pursue the Past. Could still see a use for the Lantern. So yeah, looks like a 4-color control deck, or maybe just Mardu control with the Unholy Annex. Goggles could be fun. Alright, now I do want to make sure I don't miss my land drops, but I guess for now Tablet is fine. And then play a Lantern. That's ideal. So next turn, maybe Pursue, discarding a Lantern. If I draw land, I can just play the Goggles. Although we may also want to answer the Annex as soon as possible. Opponent did not find a 4th land, it seems. And I did. They could have their own inevitable defeat. But I think we still try the Goggles. Although, yeah, I guess a defeat is quite likely. So then maybe I'm better off answering their Annex. Although getting to copy the defeat would be pretty sweet. Yeah, let's go goggles. There is an argument to maybe wait on the goggles until I can immediately copy a spell afterwards. But we'll pass, and then can maybe sack a lantern to draw end of turn. Opponent with a Silver Quill Charm to burn for 3. So yeah, maybe more of a Mardu burn deck. So yeah, hopefully they do not have the defeat here. Alright, looks like we'll get to untap. So then I'll just draw. And then now, still in favor of copying the defeat as opposed to pursue the past. So let's tap carefully. So pursue. Discarding, at this point, maybe the Soul Guide Lantern. Found a land. And then I can pass and wait a little bit longer on Inevitable Defeat, I think. If they want to make a demon token, that's fine by me. But they might play something more valuable than Authority. Okay, opponent will Silver Quill Charm again. And Lightning Helix. So we're about to gain a ton of life here. It's going to be a tapped advantage. Alright, so I think it's time to defeat with the goggles. Back up to 18. And just gonna try to cast all my burn spells through the goggles if possible. Can also gain more life with Pursue the Past, but since we have Helix, I think we're good. So something along these lines. Can maybe still play a land that we mill. Another defeat I cannot cast since there's no targets. Alright, just pass it back. Can double Helix. Together as one makes sense. So copy my Helix now. And then, yeah, there's no way I can burn them out here. Opponent back up to 13. We can get pretty close with Burst Lightning with Kicker copied with Goggles. And now another Helix. So let's see. I can spend 5 mana on a kicked burst that gets doubled, so that's 8. And then I can still double Lightning Helix here. So we're out burning the burn deck. And one more. Sweet. So yeah, the Goggles breaking this matchup wide open. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Good against creature decks with double Burst Lightning. Still need black for Inevitable Defeat. But we'll give it a shot. Red-green Lanor Elves, so we don't mind seeing that. Now with Pyroclasm, I think I wait on the Burst Lightning. There's not too many 3-drops that wouldn't die to Pyroclasm. So yeah, Badger Mole. They can play another one for all I care. And the Leyline Weaver. Well, our opponent's going to be pretty sad to see the Pyroclasm. A nice 3-for-1. Next turn we can tablet, still have a Burst Lightning available. Just answer the cub now. Could have also passed, and if they played an Ouroboros, I could have cast double Burst Lightning on it. Opponent just using their Nature's Rhythm to get a Lanor Elves. So this turn, I guess I play the Lantern to exile the Nature's Rhythm. Question is if I want to keep up Inevitable Defeats. If they go for an Ouroboros, that might be worth it, because I don't want them getting +1 counters on their other creatures. Rhythm for 2. Okay, so probably getting a Badger Mole, and then I can just take out the Badger Mole here. Probably gonna have to sack the Lantern to exile their graveyard. Can wait and see what we draw first. Another defeat. Yeah, I'm not too worried about the Nature's Rhythm right now. So I think I'll wait a little bit longer. Might be time to animate the Great Hall. Opponent does have Ouroboros. That one we do need to defeat before it triggers. Find another defeat. Yeah, we'll just run it back, nothing has changed. So they could Rhythm for 1 here once again. That would be fine by me. Yep, so they can get another elf. I'm gonna animate the Great Hall. And we can start getting more aggressive. So at this point I probably want to sack the Lantern. Find a Capstone, that was exciting. Since I can just cast it here. And the Revelation. So we'll bounce a Lanor Elves. Destroy another one. And yeah, opponent has seen enough, they're just too far behind. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a functional hand, just need to hit a few more land drops. But the Lantern can be cycled. Start with a Night Club. So I think I'm down to actually shock in the Blood Crypt so we can sack the Lantern right away. So green-white, is it a landfall? It looks like it. Alright, so I'll still sack the Lantern, hoping to draw land for Tablet, and then I can still burst the Cub afterwards. It looks like the play. But there was a chance I milled another Burst Lightning or Pyroclasm that I could have cast. So next turn we can maybe cast an Explosion already, with a land Goggles becomes an option, or I can pursue to try and hit more land drops. But yeah, the plan is to copy the Capstone with the Goggles. So it does appear to be a Landfall deck. Mossborn Hydra is not to be messed with. I think we can still leave it in play for 1 turn. Because I can always Explosion dealing 7, which is hopefully enough next turn. And then now I get to pursue discarding the Night Club to play it with Mayhem, which is good value. Then again, I guess I could also Explosion, discard the Night Club. Yeah, maybe that's better. Just not take any unnecessary risks. So then discard Night Club and pursue, 2 damage is enough. That way I get to keep the Capstone to actually cast. And then next turn I could already cast a Capstone, or we can take a turn off deploying the Goggles first. For now, Chocobo ×2. And a fetch lane, so there are already 2 3s. So I'm gonna need another sweeper at some point. Or just copy another removal spell. Lightning Helix is good. So what I can do now is play the goggles, leaving white available. So I can immediately copy the Lightning Helix and answer both Chocobos. And that's nice. And then now we can copy the capstone next turn at the very least. Curator can exile the Pursue the Past. That I can live with. Untap, find another explosion, but yeah, we're here for the capstone ×2. Hitting a Jeskai Revelation. So I'll bounce your land and deal 4 to the Curator. Then we get another capstone, which hits Tablet and Lantern, so those are both excellent. Especially when our opponent doesn't have any creatures left in play. And then get rid of the fetch land in case of an Ice Still Explorer. Mill a land that I still get to play. And yeah, I can make it tapped, we're not in a hurry. Keep Lantern for Ice Still. Got a Lightning Helix, although not quite available right now. But we're not too far from just winning the game next turn. So let's see if we hit something like Inevitable Defeat would be nice. Ill-timed Explosion's not bad either. So let's see, Trigger Prowess. I'll probably just end up drawing 2 with this. Yeah. So then it's our turn. I get to maybe just copy a Lightning Helix to answer this. Yeah, that seems fine. Could also play a backup Goggles and then copy something again. Are we at a point where we can just guarantee lethal? I guess I'm out of white mana. Yeah, let's just take it easy. Should have it next turn. Yeah, ideally would have kept up white mana here. Opponent's gonna battle it out with Surak into Llanowar Elves. Can probably draw with a Lantern now. Cast another capstone. Hitting a Lantern and seize the spoils. If we did hit something like a Burst Lightning, I could have still paid the kicker cost with the Goggles to then actually copy the Burst Lightning, which is a fun interaction that can come up. So we've got a pair of 4/4s. Can I guarantee a lethal, copy a Lightning Helix, clear both creatures, and then I get to copy Burst Lightning. I mean, I can also just copy the Burst Lightning, I suppose. A couple of ways we can go about it. But our opponent is very much dead. So I can play another Goggles. And then copy the Burst Lightning with this one. But yeah, the game was pretty much decided once we cast the capstone. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a functional hand. Got good mana. Can wait a little bit longer on the lantern. Maybe even wait a turn on tablet so I can still mill a land and play it. Opponent a blue-black. If they are on the Reanimator, I have gotten punished by not playing the lantern and our opponent having a Deceit. So maybe I will play it out now. Even though typically you want to wait for the opponent to mill something useful that you can exile. And yeah, it does appear to be a graveyard deck. Another lantern's good to have in the back pocket. So, could already play the tablet. Could wait another turn since we're not really in a hurry. Possible they've got the Saga here to destroy the lantern before they start filling the graveyard. And yeah, that's one of the downsides of running it out before the opponent fills the graveyard. Now I get to at least draw a card. And then, yeah, try and wait on the second lantern. Tablet mills Burst Lightning. So I could still seize the spoils. Although I kind of like all the cards in my hand. So maybe I do just Burst Lightning here. I guess a second tablet is less important. So I could just seize, discard tablet. And then next turn we get to maybe do some things with the goggles. Sure. Alright, Revelation's a good one to have, so not gonna waste my treasure on the Burst Lightning. Opponent milled the Kevero, especially relevant on Chapter 3 when they can get it back. And now Wistfulness can blow up my tablet. Could have also gone for the goggles, to be fair. And a Town Greeter. So this will let us know if we need to play the Lantern. And yeah, opponent milled the Bringer, so that answers that question. So yeah, I guess if they discard something to get back Wistfulness, I can still pop the Lantern to exile their graveyard. If the plan is to play Goggles into Lantern this turn, which I think it is. And then exile the Bringer. So we'll see if they want to make use of Chapter 3. Discards a land, targeting the Wistfulness. So yeah, I think I exile the graveyard now, and then copying Revelation should be pretty much lights out. Another Town Greeter to start filling again. Mills Kevero. And another one. That's fine. So there is a Terror of the Peaks in there. And a Capstone's nice too. But I think it's gotta be the Revelation. I can wait to have our opponent put something on the stack, since this also gets around Cavern of Souls. And then we get to copy it. So I guess I want to play the land untapped, keep the treasure. And then next turn I can go for the Capstone. So just an attack for 3. And then end of turn Revelation. Bouncing Starting Town and dealing 4. And then we'll bounce the Watery Grave as well. Have 4 Monk tokens ready to go. So even drew another Lantern. Could copy the Capstone, but we might have guaranteed lethal if we copy the Inevitable Defeat. And yeah, that's gonna be 6 more damage just from Inevitable Defeat alone. And then we've got the Prowess attack. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got a somewhat slow hand, but I do have all my colors, some graveyard hate, a sweeper. And being on the play should make up for it. Turn 1 Scavenger, so the Aura deck. I think I still play the Lantern, so I can sack it next turn if they want to exile it with Sheltered by Ghosts, Be My Guest. Inevitable Defeat still ignores the ward, at least. And it's going to be an Aerialist next. So the ill-timed explosion's looking good. Can pursue the past. And then still sack the Lantern. Probably want more white mana. Okay, pass it back. And a Weaver. So, opponent's definitely committing a lot of creatures here, so the explosion is exactly what we want. Now, I might need 5 damage to ensure that everything dies, because Scavenger plus a Shard Mage's Rescue could get the Aerialist up to a 5/5. And I do not have a 5 mana card in hand yet. But yeah, we'll still go for it here. And then I guess we'll discard a tablet now. Alongside maybe Burst Lightning. Alright, opponent did not have a response, so that worked out. Otherwise, Inevitable Defeat still could have been an answer to the Aerialist if it stuck around. Okay, so this turn I like tablets into maybe a Lightning Helix. Well, we milled a Lightning Helix, so that's convenient. And I guess I could even cast a second Helix if I want, and I think I do. Answer all creatures. As the dust settles, can still flashback Pursue to look for some of our 7-drops. I'll take a Goggles off the top as well. And Ethereal Armor. Doesn't line up great against Inevitable Defeat. Can again main phase it to play around Shard Mage's Rescue. And then probably fine to flash this back, discarding a land. Alright, found the Goggles. Copying Explosion can draw 4. Copying Defeat is going to be hard to come back from. And can also copy a Pyroclasm now. But yeah, let's go Goggles into Explosion. And then can decline for now and discard on the second one. Not gonna need another Goggles. Probably don't need Pyroclasm, to be fair. Alright, and now we get to copy Jeskai Revelation, which can close out the game very quickly. Opponent's fighting the good fight. But this is not an easy matchup for the Aura deck to win. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We've got 3 lands and a tablet. No black mana for defeat, but yeah, I think we can try this with 2 Burst Lightnings as early interaction. And Forsaken Miner, black, green. Okay, for now, probably still playing tapped Foundry. And maybe next turn we can deal with a Miner. This might be the Sultai, Badger Mole, plus Ouroboros deck. So then having a lot of removal is a good place to be. If they go for apply geometry to copy something, we can just remove it in response. Right, opponent's got the bat, but we have double burst lightning, so no acceleration so far, so don't have to worry about Ouroboros for another turn or two. And a lantern. Okay, so just pass for now, likely answering the bat. If they play the Quandrix Charm, I guess they could make it a 5/5, so it is safer to answer the bat now. And then next turn I could either tablet into Burst Lightning or into Soul Guide Lantern, although Lantern's better at maybe dealing with the miner. They could have Corpses of the Lost, which would be a lot of pressure here, so then I don't have a lot of time to find my black mana. And they had another bat, as it turns out, leaving a Breeding Pool. So maybe they've got another 1-drop here, Lanor Elves or Pollinator. Opponent actually took the tablet instead of the Burst Lightning. And we drew our black mana for Inevitable Defeat. Don't need to show it to them just yet. Do we Burst Lightning the miner, exile it with Lantern? Opponent taps out for Ouroboros next turn. We exile it. Game goes on from there. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. It's also going to be easier to deal with a 2/2 bat compared to a 3/3 miner. Now they could potentially go for the Applied Geometry, but we have double defeat. So our opponent's just going to sit back instead. I will draw. Defeat is uncounterable, so don't need to worry about Quandrix Charm. And now Explosion's not bad either. Yeah, seems like a pretty clean answer. So one defeat has to go. And get my tablet back. Opponent flashes in a Drowner. Alright, so we can start with tablets, and then still technically cast a defeat afterwards. Could be better off leaving the Great Hall untapped, but then I end up taking one more damage. Depending on which land I mill, if any. Alright, so if I go for Sacred Foundry, I give up Inevitable Defeat this turn. Maybe that's still fine. Just play the Lantern. I do maybe get in trouble if they have another Drowner and hit me for 4, or Drowner into Ouroboros hit me for 6. That would add up. So I could also sack the Lantern now, in case I draw Burst Lightning I can keep it available, but let's see what happens. Opponent did have another Drowner, so yeah, if they go land or Ouroboros, that could be bad for me. It's going to be a Corpses, also a good one to exile. So I'm taking 7. I think I do sack the Lantern here. And a Revelation is exactly what we need to stabilize. So, can cast it now, or I can wait. If I wait, I do get punished by Quandrix Charm, so I think I should main phase it. So I want to bounce the Skeleton, deal 4 to a Drowner. So I should not be in danger of dying. And we still have Inevitable Defeat available. Take the trade. Opponent returns corpses, that's fine. Okay, so this turn cycle, want to keep up defeat. Could still explosion just to draw 2. Would still keep defeat available, would fall to 6. They could have another Drowner in hand as well, so we do have to be a little bit careful. Safest play might still be to just play tap Nightclub and pass, and then I have double defeat available. And then we want to exile the enchantment as opposed to the skeleton token, so the token also doesn't have haste. Opponent did have another Drowner. Not the matchup to draw too many of those, since we're light on creatures. So we'll wait for the corpses. Opponent's just going to move to attackers instead. Yeah, in that case, I guess we'll still go for defeat on Drowner. Could also animate Great Hall, to be fair. If they Quandrix Charm to make this a 5/5, I'm probably fine with it. So they maybe didn't take this into account. Ah, there's a Quandrix Charm. That's fine. And now Pyroclasm. So, let's Explosion first, maybe. Draw 2. And then Pyroclasm deals with Drowner without answering the Monk. Found our Goggles, excellent. So no need to discard unless I want to just get the Goggles down now. Could also keep up defeat for the corpses, but then I do lose the Monk token, which is avoidable. So yeah, I think we wait on the Goggles and just Pyroclasm for now. And then I could pursue, discard like a Blood Crypt. Or I can wait to copy it with Goggles to have something more proactive I can do if our opponent doesn't present targets for defeat. So take 3 off corpses, but yeah, we should be pretty much in the clear. So I should have the mana for Goggles into copy defeat. Could also get the Capstone going, but this is kind of a sure thing. So cast defeat. Target this and your skeleton. Gain 6 in the process. And our opponent scoops it up, but yeah, we still had plenty of leftovers here to copy with the Goggles as well. So yeah, overall, pretty happy with where this deck ended up. Getting to copy your spells with Goggles is great. If those spells are 7 drops like Jeskai Revelation, it's gonna end the game incredibly quickly. So yeah, a very fun deck, especially when you're facing creature strategies. It may suffer a bit against other control decks that are packing counter spells, since if the opponent can just counter the Goggles and your 7 mana spells, you're eventually going to fall behind when they can maybe resolve their spells instead. So it's definitely not a perfect strategy, but as long as you're facing mostly creature strategies in best of 1, this is a pretty nice setup. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. And as always, have a nice day.